You have never heard about the deadliest battle in the history. This is the story of an epic clash where millions fought and the casualties were so immense that it changed the course of human civilization. It all began when Genghis Khan united the tribes of the Mongolian steppe into a formidable force that would become one of the largest empires in history. But he didn't stop there. He wanted to conquer the whole world. And his first target was China. In 1211, Genghis Khan and his army laid siege to the city of Shandong. The city's defenders were outnumbered, and soon they started running out of food. The people of Shandong had no other option but to surrender. However, they made one condition. They would open the gates of the city for the Mongols, only if they were provided with enough grain to sustain their journey back home. Mongols accepted the deal. They loaded themselves with grain and left the city. Little did they know that it was a trap. As the Mongols were leaving the city, the gates were shut and locked. Then the Chinese soldiers came out of the hiding places and attacked them. They chased the Mongols across the plain, and within a few hours, half of Genghis Khan's army was wiped out. It was a devastating defeat for the Mongols, but it fueled their desire for revenge. Genghis Khan assembled a massive army, almost 40,000 strong, and marched back to Shandong. He laid siege to the city once again. This time there was no escape. Genghis Khan ordered his men to dig tunnels under the city walls and blow up the gates with the help of catapults. Finally, after a long and bloody siege, the city fell. The Mongols slaughtered every single person inside. Men, women, and children were put to death. No one was spared. The massacre at Shandong was one of the deadliest battles in the history. But this was just the beginning. Genghis Khan's thirst for power knew no bounds. He conquered Persia, Afghanistan, and Russia. Everywhere he went, he spread death and destruction. His empire stretched from the Pacific Ocean to Eastern Europe. And all this would not have been possible without his brilliant military tactics. For example, he used psychological warfare to demoralize his enemies before a battle even began. His armies would arrive carrying banners that read, "Submit and you will be spared." If the ruler of the city accepted his offer, then he would allow them to keep their lives and possessions. But if they refused, then he would raze the city to the ground and kill everyone inside. Most rulers chose to fight, and in the end, they paid the price. He also perfected the art of using cavalry in warfare. His army consisted of well-trained horsemen who could shoot straight with a bow and arrow. While riding a horse at full gallop, he used these highly mobile units to flank his enemies and break their ranks. He also used a psychological trick to confuse his opponents. He would send small groups of soldiers ahead of his main force to harass the enemy and lure them out of their fortifications. Once his cavalry was in position, he would unleash his infantry. It would sweep through the enemy's defenses like a tidal wave. Under Genghis Khan's leadership, the Mongols became a well-oiled fighting machine that could crush any army it faced. That brings us to the deadliest battle in the history. The year was 1226. For over a century, the Khwarazmians had ruled the land between the Caspian and Aral seas. But recently they had become a vassal state of the Mongols. The Khwarazmians paid tribute to the Mongols and followed their rules, but they hated the Mongols with all their heart. Secretly, they were planning to rebel. When Sultan Muhammad II came to power, he decided it was time to throw off the Mongol yoke. He gathered an army of 80,000 men and marched toward the Mongol border. Soon, both armies faced each other on the banks of the Indus River. The Khwarazmians had a huge advantage. Their army was 8 times larger than the Mongols. To make things worse, the Mongols were exhausted because they had traveled for months. Yet despite these odds, Genghis Khan was confident that he would win. On the day of the battle, the Mongols were outnumbered, but they were ready. For the attack, Genghis Khan divided his army into 3 parts. The first 2 would flank the enemy. The third group, which was the largest, pretended to retreat. The plan was to lure the Khwarazmians out of their camp. As the battle began, the Khwarazmians charged forward. Genghis Khan's right wing crumbled under the pressure and started to retreat. Seeing this, the Khwarazmian soldiers became overconfident. They left their camp and pursued the Mongols. Genghis Khan had exactly the reaction he was looking for. Meanwhile, his left wing was giving the Khwarazmian center a tough time. They couldn't advance a single inch. As the Khwarazmians kept chasing the retreating Mongols, more and more of them left their positions. Eventually, The entire left wing broke through the enemy lines and joined the right wing. Together, they turned around and attacked the Khwarazmians. At this point, the situation was hopeless. The Khwarazmians tried to reorganize, but it was too late. Genghis Khan's army was like a pack of wolves that had trapped a lone sheep. The Mongols killed thousands of Khwarazmians. Those who survived fled to their camp, but it offered little protection. The Mongols stormed the camp and massacred everyone inside. Historians believe that somewhere between 70,000 to 110,000 Khwarazmians were killed in the battle. It was one of the most decisive victories in the history of warfare. But Genghis Khan was not done yet. He pursued the remaining Khwarazmians for months. He killed anyone who tried to escape. Even the Sultan's family was not spared. The battle completely destroyed the Khwarazmian Empire. It also established the supremacy of the Mongols across Central Asia. But we must admit Genghis Khan was not the only military genius of his time. The Khwarazmians had a great general named Yebai, who was considered invincible in war. He had won many battles against the Mongols, but somehow he made a big mistake that led to the downfall of his empire. You see, Yeb was known for his brilliant use of psychological warfare. He used to terrorize the Mongols before battles by sending elite squads of assassins to eliminate their generals. He also beheaded Mongol envoys in cold blood, which angered Genghis Khan. But the worst thing he did was insult the Mongols' religion. You see, Genghis Khan followed Tengrism, a Central Asian religion that emphasized shamanism, animism, and belief in the powers of nature. Yet Yebai publicly called the Mongols' beliefs a superstition. This further enraged Genghis Khan. He wanted to punish Yebai, but he couldn't do it directly. So he tricked the general. One day Genghis Khan sent a letter to Yebai inviting him to a peace negotiation. He promised to end the war and establish a friendly relationship between the two empires. Yet Yebai should not have trusted the Mongols. He had traveled to the meeting point alone, but as soon as he arrived, the Mongols surrounded him and killed him. With their greatest general dead, the Khwarazmians had no chance of winning the war. The Battle of Indus is a testament to the power of psychology and warfare. If Yebai had not insulted the Mongols or executed their messengers, perhaps the outcome of the war would have been different. But as Sun Tzu said, "Let your plans be dark and impenetrable as night, and when you move, fall like a thunderbolt." Now, I want to ask you, what do you think? Why do you think the Khwarazmians lost the battle? Is it because they were overconfident, or because of their general's mistakes? Let me know in the comments. And do I ain't forget to subscribe, because next week we are going to talk about the mysterious reason behind the fall of the Roman Empire. It's going to be an interesting video. You don't want to miss it. That's all for today. If you liked the video, please leave a like and share it with your friends. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.